Building the Golden Gate Bridge was an audacious feat of engineering that many experts in the early 20th century deemed the bridge that couldn't be built. Between the treacherous currents, blinding fog, and the Great Depression, the odds were stacked against it. Here is the breakdown of how this Art Deco icon came to life. The engineering vision before construction began. The project faced immense political and financial hurdles. It took years to convince the public that a suspension bridge could withstand the Pacific's fury. The architect, chief engineer Joseph Strauss, led the project. Though much of the technical design is credited to Charles Ellis and the aesthetic flair to Irving Morrow, the cost, approximately $35 million, over $700 million today, funded entirely by bonds during the height of the Depression. Construction period started January 5, 1933, and opened to the public on May 27. 1937. Key phases of construction. The bridge wasn't just built. It was wrestled into existence against the elements. One, the piers and pylons. The South Pier was the greatest challenge. Divers had to descend 110 feet into the churning waters of the Golden Gate Strait to blast rock and guide the placement of the concrete. E-foundation. They built a fender, a giant concrete bathtub, to protect the pier from shift, collisions, and the tides. 2. The towers. Once the foundations were set, the two massive steel towers were erected. Standing 746 feet tall, they were the tallest bridge towers in the world at the time. They were built using millions of rivets, hammered in by hand. 3. Spinning the cables. The bridge's strength comes from its two main cables. Rather than being pre-made, they were spun on-site. The process, a spinning wheel traveled back and forth, pulling individual wires across the span. The stats, each cable contains 27,572 individual wires. If uncoiled, the wire would wrap around the earth 3 times. 4. The roadway. Once the cables were secured, the steel floor beams were hoisted into place, starting from the towers and moving toward the center and the shores simultaneously to keep the weight balanced. Safety and innovation. Strauss was a pioneer in construction safety. He mandated the use of hard hats, a first for the industry, and glare-resistant goggles. The Halfway to Hell Club. Strauss installed a massive safety net under the bridge during construction. It saved the lives of 19 men who fell. They jokingly called themselves members of this exclusive club. Unfortunately, one tragic failure of the net support near the end of construction resulted in 10 deaths. Why is it orange? The signature color is called International Orange. Originally, the Navy wanted it painted with black and yellow stripes for visibility. However, Irving Morrow noticed the reddish-orange primer on the steel and realized it complemented the surrounding H hills and increased visibility in the fog.